But happy Wednesday. It's going to be a mild, maybe rainy, 25% chance of rain, but currently 49 degrees, high of around 65. And we have a waxing crescent moon. Um, and so we've been doing Job, we've been in a study of Job, and we're in Job chapter 35 now. And um, Elihu really turns up his rebuke on Job a little bit here, and he starts with a couple of questions. Do you think this to be just? So this is he's talking about what Job is saying and how he's presenting and his uh, um, he's questioning his heart in his worst time when he's lost everything and he's been afflicted physically, mentally, emotionally. The full, essentially, Job's felt the full impact of Satan's finger on him. And so, do you think this to be just? Do you say it is right before God that you ask, what advantage have I? How am I better off than if I had sinned? And, Job did say these things, right? 32, right? That you ask, what advantage have I? Right? So, what's the purpose of being a believer if all these bad things happen to me? He said that in chapter 34. And then he says, I will answer you and your friends with you. So, you can see the heart swelling in his speech. It's no longer, it feels like it's no longer from a place of charity, from a charitable position. Then he asks, um, verse 6, if you have sinned, what do you accomplish against him? And if your transgressions are multiplied, what do you do to him? Now contrast that with verse 7, if you are righteous. So verse 6, if you have sinned, what do you accomplish against him? Verse 7, if you are righteous, what do you give him? Right? Or what does he receive from you? Now, when we sin or act righteous, what do we actually give God? Like, he's so high above us, and he's the creator. He holds all of us and all this in his hands. What do we actually do to him when we sin, and what do we actually give him in our righteousness? Can we do or give anything to God? Right? And that's what his question is. And I disagree with this sentiment because in Genesis 6, 5, and 6, God looked down at the intentions of the thoughts of his heart, of our heart, and they were evil always, and it grieved him, and he repented of his creation, right? So we grieve God in our sinful hearts. And Ephesians 4:30, right? We grieve the Spirit of God. So we do actually do something to God when we sin, right? We grieve him, especially if we're a believer and we have the Holy Spirit in us and Christ in our heart, right? We we grieve him when we let our flesh get carried away and take us away. We grieve him when we sin, right? And so in our righteousness, what do we actually give him or do? Well, we don't give him necessarily anything, but we do show his glory because outside of him, we cannot be righteous, right? We have a testimony, we can testify, right? It's not, but we're not actually giving him anything because he holds us in his hands, right? Then he then he stings him with verse 8. Your wickedness concerns a man like yourself, and your righteousness a son of man. He's basically saying you only do it for men, right? The outcomes or this is only um, the impact is only on man or or your children, right? And or your children, right? And so um, Elihu's part of his argument is that um, we don't actually do anything to or for God, right? There's nothing we can do. So because of this, now listen, verse 9, because of the multitude of oppressions, people cry out. They call for help because of the arm of the mighty, right? So it's he's basically saying people don't call out because of faith. They call out because they're hurt. Did God allow the devil to do things? Yes. Yes. Yeah, he did. He did allow it, and he does allow the devil to do things for his purposes, right? He does that for his purposes. Um, that's a good question, Mario. Good question. Um, people, so these oppressions, because of the multitude of oppressions, they call out for the help of God because of the arm of the mighty. So when people are oppressed, it's that they're oppressed by the mighty around them. Is what he's contending here. But none says, where is God my maker, who gives songs in the night, who teaches us more than the beasts of the earth, and makes us wiser than the birds of heaven. See, if we're that wise, if we're that proud, we're not going to call out. We're going to try and do it on our own. And that is something that I struggle with. Like when things are bad, is the first place I go to God. Sometimes, when I'm dealing with it appropriately, but when I'm dealing with it in the flesh, or from the sting of that bite, I try to take it on myself. I think I'm smart. I got the degrees and all that other stuff. I feel like I'm a smart guy, right? I'm strong. I can do that. Do you think we can get some words on dispensationalism? I could do that at some point. Absolutely. I just preached um, last week. God's holiness does not change, and yes, there are dispensations, and he might deal with us a little bit differently at times, but his holiness is the same. He's the same today, yesterday, and forever, right? So and I do consider myself a dispensationalist. Um, uh, yeah, I'll do some of that, Garson. Good, that's a good thing. Um, so, uh, who teaches us more than the beasts of the earth, and makes us wiser than the birds of the heaven. So then he says, look, verse 12. There they cry out, but he does not answer. Now, who's this they? This they is those that are wiser in oppression, right? So if I'm crying out just because I'm in this pickle, he's trying to say, but he does not answer because of the pride of evil men. He doesn't necessarily answer the proud. He's trying to say that he doesn't hear you when you only call out to him in these times. Um, and that, going back to your answer, does God allow the question, does God allow the devil to do things? Yes, he does. And he uses men, evil men, to do things. And he uses armies and raises up powers and principalities. Like, he does do that. Why? So that we call out and we come to that saving faith understanding. That's why. So he does hear those men when they cry out, but they're the broken ones, the ones that aren't broken, right? He does not hear. The ones that aren't broken, he does not hear. All right, verse 13. Surely God does not hear an empty cry, nor does the Almighty regard it. And no. And you know what? If the cry is empty, he might turn up the heat a little more and give Satan a little bit more room. When I, the book of Job, felt like they weren't together without the devil, how would God know who's worthy? That's, yeah, exactly, Mario. How many? I got 5 kids. So stupid. These Bronze Age beliefs are so. No, they're not. Oh no, no, Carol. These things happen now, and uh, actually, the scriptures prove science, right? it's not the other way around. No, no. And logic and reason uh, is in the scriptures. It is, yeah. Um, anyway, how much less when you say that you do not see him, that the case is before him, you are waiting for him. Oh, ouch, right? Ouch. Now, and yes, Job definitely did say that. He said both of those things. These are quotes, right? And he's throwing his words back at him. And how many times in times of hurt, how many times in times of struggle, in times of pressure, intense pressure, do we say stuff we don't mean? How many times, you know, does my mouth get the best of me with my wife or somebody at work or it happens, it happens. It does, just like Job, a faithful man. It doesn't matter. Like we still do these things. That's the human condition, and God knows that. See, and God knows that. And now, because his anger does not punish, and he does not take much note of transgression, Job opens his mouth in empty talk. He multiplies words without knowledge. So that is the condemnation that Elihu is putting on Job. And guess what? We all do that. Yes, we do. We all open our mouth in empty talk and we all multiply words without knowledge, especially when the devil is pouring it on. But see here, he's mistaken Job's heart because Job is faithful, y'all. Job is faithful. He's hurting, and he's um, and yes, he did question, like, you know, where is God, right? Where are you? I'm looking for you to plead my case, and you're not there. Yes, he did do that, right? And there are times when we feel like God's not there, but He is. No, I'm not Mormon. No, no, no. I I'm I belong to the Conservative Grace Brethren group, and it's from the Anabaptists. We're it for a known denomination. It's essentially Baptist. That's what I am. But I'm not, because it's a little there's some different um, doctrine. There's doctrinal differences, but essentially it comes from that same movement. All right, you guys. Joe, this has been a great Saturday. I encourage you, if you got more questions, go back. I've been doing Job for like the last, probably over a month. So there's the videos are out there. You can follow it right from 1-1 all the way through, and it'll explain everything. Um, anyway, yes, build strength and faith. Yes, yes, Mario. Yes. All right, you guys, have a wonderful day.